The Manchus were another Mongolian tribe that lived north of China. They were herdsmen, nomadic people skilled in horseback. In the 1590s, the Ming used Manchu armies to repel a Japanese invasion. This forced the Manchu to centralize under one ruler who called himself the Qing Emperor. The Qing Emperor organized his army under 8 banners, each with a different color, and some of the Mongol and Chinese generals would adopt their own banners and allied with the king. Rebels of the Ming took over. Due to this instability, Manchus then took over northern China as well as Beijing, and after 4 decades, the Manchu would rule over all of China. Some Ming would continue to rebel, some would leave China and go to the island of Taiwan. King rulers would adopt many of the same customs as the Chinese as before. If something is working, you want to keep it. So they kept the exam system as well as Confucianism, both of these to gain cooperation with the Chinese elite. A Chinese official would govern as a minister, but they would be supervised by a Manchu just to look over them. The Chinese did adopt the Manchu hairstyle called a queue. This would be a shaved forehead with a single long braid in the back. So in one aspect, the Chinese elite knew who their new masters were, and they adopted that part of Manchu culture. There would be 3 major emperors between the years 1661 and 1799. The first, Kangxi, ruled for 60 years between 1662 and 1722. He studied Confucian classics to appease the Chinese. He also increased agricultural production. This is important. The peasants initially, when they rebelled, did so due to starvation, and by introducing new crops from the Americas, such as the potato. The potato can provide more calories per acre than any other agricultural product. So this helped the poor people of China. By doing so, this caused a population boom from 100 million in 1500 to 250 million in the year 1750. His son, Emperor Zhang, ruled a shorter period, only 12 years, from 723 to 1735. He is known for reforming the tax system by collecting more taxes based on income from agricultural products. The system was more equitable between the rich and the poor. He was followed by his son, Emperor Qianlong, and he served also almost 60 years. This is when the king reached their zenith. Chinese luxury goods were still very popular among the European elite. They coveted silk and porcelain. This provided key silver imports from the Europeans, especially from the Spanish. The Chinese also began to adopt other cash crops, such as tobacco, and small shops, a mini sort of industrialization, or should I say a domesticated market, started to produce glass, and all these items would be exported. Women faced another issue. First of all, cotton production soon outpaced the more expensive silk. Cotton was cooler and more durable, but most importantly, less expensive for the consumers. Both silk made from cocoons of butterflies that eat mulberry leaves and cotton textile production were for women. There was a saying in China that men plow and women weave. The women often worked from their home, increasing domestic income, although it went to the husband's family rather than to the wife directly. The mother-in-law often treated their sons' wives harshly. Feet binding was considered a sign of wealth. However, the trend caught on. Young girls would have their feet broken and bound. Their large toe and heel would meet, forming a 3-inch ball. This often caused infections and caused constant pain for women. And while Manchu women did not participate, the king were afraid to forbid this practice because perhaps the Chinese elite would rebel against the Manchu authorities. Now, while the Industrial Revolution had already started in Great Britain, the Chinese did not adopt machines to increase production. Many believe that due to constant Chinese labor, such as married women, they were in large supply and cheap, so therefore why mechanize? So during this period, while they were growing, Europe would grow technologically more faster than China in science and eventually overtake them. The advanced Chinese cities historically had problems with Mongolian nomads on horseback. The Great Wall helped but did not stop this raiding. The king attacked Tibet and sided with a rival to become the new spiritual leader, or the Dalai Lama. This weakened the Muslim Mongols in the area, the Zungars, and once the king had established their power, they committed genocide against the Zungars. Men were killed and women and children enslaved. Repopulated the area with sedentary Muslims that would not attack the Chinese. The Chinese were also paid tribute by Korea and Vietnam to keep their own autonomy. So China was considered the Middle Earth Kingdom. The next that they would respect would be Korea and Vietnam because they had assimilated their cultures, although they were independent, but they looked down upon others. As the Russians moved east, they encountered Chinese positions, leading to sporadic skirmishes. The Chinese feared they would arm the Mongolian nomads, so they signed the Treaty of Nerchinsk with the Russians, setting a boundary between the two powers in the year 1689. King George III sent a mission to China. They sent Ambassador Macartney, an emissary, to establish diplomatic relations between the two powers. Qianlong did not need any British goods and believed that China was the center of the universe. According to custom, a guest to the emperor must perform a kowtow, or a series of full prostrations on the floor before the emperor. Macartney refused, and the emperor was not interested in the British ambassador. However, Qianlong was getting old, and again, the Chinese never industrialized, while the British and Europeans were making major scientific advancements. Food production would level off in China, thus causing occasional food shortages. So over time, China would gain a great deal of territory, especially to the west in Tibet and where you see Mongolia all the way to the west. They do this under this new leadership, but over time, they do not take the scientific advancements as the Europeans do, and they will decline relative to European powers.